This video will cover the logical formulas if, and, or, and not. Now let's take a look at the first formula. The AND formula checks whether all arguments are true and returns true if all arguments are true. So in this example, the AND formula will return true if the tree species is C and the DBH of the tree is greater than 10 centimeters. If either of these conditions is not met, the formula will return false. Here you can see that to write this AND formula, we would need to enter a logical test. So for our first condition, we would need to test whether the species of the tree is equal to C. So here we would select the cell that corresponds to the species, equals, and enter the criteria C. And since this is a non-numeric criteria, we would need to write it in quotation marks. And for the second criteria, we would select the DBH of this tree and check if it's greater than 10. So to repeat, this first part of the formula checks whether the species of this tree is equal to C, and the second part of this formula checks whether the DBH of the tree is greater than 10. If both of these conditions are met, the formula will return true. If either of the conditions is not met, then the formula will return false. So as you can see here, the species of this tree is F, so the first condition isn't met, and the DBH of this tree is also less than 10. So both conditions in this example aren't met. Now we can copy this formula to the rest of this column, and you can see here the tree that returns true will be of species C and will have a DBH greater than 10. Now let's take a look at the second formula, which is OR. The OR formula checks whether any of the arguments are true, and for this formula, it will only return false if all of the arguments are not met. So in this example, the OR formula will return true if either the tree species is C or the DBH is greater than 10. It will return false only if the tree species isn't C and the DBH isn't greater than 10. So again, the component for the OR formula is the exact same as the AND formula, where we would need to add logical tests in the formula. So for the first condition, we would select the species data equals C in quotation marks. And for the second condition, we would select DBH greater than 10. You can see here that for this tree, the OR formula returns false because the species isn't C and the DBH isn't greater than 10. If we copy down the formula to the rest of the column, we would see that if at least one of the conditions are met, it will return true. So in this example, although the DBH is less than 10, the species of this tree is C, so it meets one of the criteria, and therefore the OR formula will return true. The next formula that we will discuss is the NOT formula, which is a slightly trickier formula compared to the two that we just talked about. So in this example, we are asking whether the species is not C. So if the species is F or H, the NOT formula will return true because it is true that the species of the tree is not C. If the species of the tree is C, then the NOT formula will return false because it is false that the species of the tree is not C. So now let's dive into the formula itself. Here we can see that the NOT formula requires one logical test, and in this case, we're testing whether the species data is equal to C. And for this tree, the NOT formula returns true because the species of this tree is F. So it is true that the species isn't C. If we drag the formula to the rest of the column, we can see that for this tree, the NOT formula returns false because the species of this tree is C. So it is false to say that the species isn't C. You can pause the video here if you want to take more time to understand this formula. The last formula that we will discuss in this video is the if formula. And just like the previous formulas, the if formula allows us to test whether an argument is true. It also allows us to determine what value the formula will return if the value is true and if the value is false. For the if formula, we will first need to enter the logical test, and then we enter the value that the formula will return if the logical test is true, and the value that the formula will return if the logical test is false. In this example, we want to test whether the species of the tree is F. If it is true that the species is F, we want the formula to return that it is a fir. If the species isn't F, then we want the formula to return that it is a hemlock or a cedar. So first, for the logical test, we would select the species equals to F, and for the value if true, we would say it is a fir, and if the value is false, we would say that it is a hemlock or a cedar. So you can see here that the species of this tree is F. So the if formula returns it is a fir. And if we copy the formula to the rest of the column, we can see here that for this tree, the species is C, so it returns it is a hemlock or cedar, just like what we have decided for the value if the logical test is false.